Okay, so you have definitely been in a situation where you're puffing on your sauce cart, it's tasting great, and then all of a sudden about halfway through it starts tasting burnt. This is probably why. I'm just about to lock in hardware for my upcoming drop, and there is a real deadline that's coming up with Chinese New Year that catches me off guard every year. China shuts down for like a month. It's a thing. Okay, but playing with hardware, one thing I've absolutely learned is that you don't skimp on the hardware. If the cartridge is wrong, it doesn't really matter how fired the extract is. The whole thing falls apart because the hardware sucks. In the worst cases, that's where you get the burnt taste right off the rip. Like right when you buy it, first rip, tastes burnt. And this is the part that people don't see behind the brands of how things are being developed, how products are actually coming to life. They all of a sudden just drop and then there's no real like build up or anything to it or any like good behind the scenes. You can spend months finding fire ass biomass, running that to extract, setting up the batch, getting everything R&D tested, and a single hardware decision can erase all of that for the actual person that's buying this. And honestly, that's why the sauce cart game is pretty tricky. It's not like flour or dabs. Think about it. The brands literally own the entire experience. Like this is your pre-made rig ready to go to a certain degree. Okay, so when I first got into vapes back in the day when distillate was big, 2016, peak of the industry, not peak, we're in the peak, but you know what I mean. Back then, the companies that you would work with for hardware, they really would only give you the ability to adjust like the aperture hole size, the hole that the oil will have to go into to actually get to the atomizer. The larger the aperture, the more oil that can actually flow through. And that was really the limits of like the thinking back then. And the game really started changing when we started getting full spectrum extracts in, both resin and rosin. It sometimes can just be a very thick oil to deal with. And that's also a whole other topic, which is like how every batch is different when you're extracting, even if you run the same material. And so that's part of the process, once again, why the game is pretty tricky. And so that's exactly why a lot of sauce carts actually taste great. Then you take a couple hits back to back or get towards the end of the cartridge, and then it doesn't have time to actually like saturate the atomizer. It suddenly tastes harsh or really burnt. And that sudden drop in flavor and taste, not random at all. What actually matters now is how well the coil can be saturated. Thicker oils don't move as easily. And if the coil can absorb the oil fast enough between hits, aka atomizer porosity for the nerds who are interested, that's where that burnt flavor starts. And then once it starts, it just compounds over the life of the cartridge. And the hard part as well is, so all of these manufacturers that are selling their vapes, they're really selling the same shit. And I just went to MJ BizCon this year, and 100% you can see that. You can literally see multiple booths selling the same stuff. It was almost awkward at one point when you would walk by the booths because you're like, I literally seen that like 10 different times. I don't need that specific jar and I don't need that specific cartridge. A lot of those companies are selling the same thing just under different names. They're technically like distributors, not really the manufacturers. So it's super important to get to brands that are actually the manufacturers of hardware, because then there's not that extra layer and gap and they have more control over it. The real difference as well is actually getting manufacturers that are doing the R&D with the oils. Like overseas, you really can't get these specific oils. So they really have to work with someone domestically to run samples, and some Chinese guy just getting lit, getting paid to do it. That's how it gets done. And really explain what's in the cart rather than just selling it. So I started with one supplier because I really trusted their background and their brand and how they marketed themselves. I thought they were like the top brand to go with. And then I went to MJ BizCon, and that opened me up to a ton of other options for hardware on the market. But after spending more time deeper in the hardware space, meeting more companies, asking harder questions, I quickly realized there's definitely a lot of nuance in the hardware space. And some companies are willing to open up the hood on things and really show you about how their technology works and what they're doing different. And then other people are just like looking to make and close a deal. Usually those people's hardware too is not the best. And those are usually the distributors. If they're not doing something different, then what the heck is the point? They're literally just selling all the same stuff. You know, it took a little bit of time to understand the game and how everything worked, and the lay of the land, but learn quickly. And now that the oil is like figured out, this is definitely why I'm focusing on the hardware now, because like I mentioned, if you put it in hardware that sucks, you're just gonna ruin the entire thing. What's the point of doing all of this work and then you get to the end and you just mess it up by being cheap with the cartridge? So also like, design aesthetic as well is like really important. Differentiate or die. That is the motto. So this is exactly why I'm obsessing over hardware before anything ships. Not like ship through the mail, that's not legal, but you get what I mean. Because what really matters What really matters is experience. It's all about the experience. That's what this is. Experience. 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 Hey, I'm Darren710, Extractor D, and I'm all about experience. Frolan, we're done here. Wrap it up.